finally available, this will be a primary distribution location for veterans to get their COVID vaccine. I've spoken to the director of VA for this facility and for the Boston Medical Center. He is very concerned about this, and I know they have a statement that they're going to be issuing. But I would just ask the control board and thank the leadership of Councilor O'Malley and Councilor Boggs, Councilor Wu, and then Senator O'Connor here as well, and I believe Representative O'Connor, and I think Senator chainjay is here as well too. Their leadership, and the mayor as well, Mayor Marty Walsh, their leadership on this is critical. The Disabled American Veterans of Massachusetts is firmly opposed to this. We need to sit back, take another look, and figure out, what are all the considerations that need to be put into this plan, and make sure that no matter what we do, no matter what plan we come out with, the last thing we do is harm the services to those men and women that were brave enough to put the uniform on for this country and serve us. So, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Across the street is the Sherrill House, and there's a sign as you're driving by that says "Heroes Work Here," and truer words were never spoken. Of course, we acknowledge and we cherish the incredible medical care of our doctors, of our surgeons, of our nurses. But in addition to that, it's the custodial crew. It's the folks that work in the kitchen. It's the folks that make the Sherrill House such an incredible, wonderful, thriving place that saves lives. And I know my family has lived through the incredible, top-notch level of care that you get there. So I wanted to acknowledge Patrick Stapleton, who's the CEO of the Sherrill House, for being here. They employ 250 workers. Roughly a third of them rely on this to come every day in the hardest days of this pandemic. Yes, we recognize that ridership was lighter because of the pandemic, but it's those essential workers who would be the most negatively impacted by these proposed cuts. So we're thankful to Patrick and the incredible team at Sherrill House. Other essential workers that we want to lift up and really acknowledge are the men and women of Local 589, our Mbta employees. And every day during these incredible tough days, during these incredibly tough days, haven't had the opportunity to work from home. You can't drive a trolley or a bus and work from home. They're out there every day making sure that our essential workers are able to be transported around the city. So I'm delighted to invite now to say a couple words the president of Local 589, Jimmy Evers, is with us as well, with many of his brothers and sisters in service.
Hello everyone. I'll make this really short. I know it can be long-winded sometimes, but as everyone knows, Mission Hill is one of the most diverse and transit-dependent neighborhoods in the city. And I just want to say, with all the cuts throughout the city, Local 589 stands behind all of you and opposes all these cuts. So I'm not going to get on with, I could go on and on, but I just want to say we're here to be behind you guys in the service that the communities that we service. So that's it. We stand behind you guys, and whatever you guys need, let us know.
As Congresswoman Pressley told me, it's always important to be brief and be seated. So that was probably the highlight of the speech today. Joining us next, we only have a couple more speakers, but many of us know our incredible state representative, Representative Nika Elagardo. She couldn't be with us in body today, but she is certainly with us in spirit, and she has a statement that her colleague Mike Leyva is going to read on behalf of Councilor Elagardo. So Mike, would you please join us? Hello everybody, can you hear me? No. Hello, there we go. Hi everybody. Hi. My name is Mike Leyva. I'm non-state rep Nika Elagardo. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But I'm a renter. I'm a Jamaica Plain resident. I'm a frequent rider of the E line or the Green Line E branch and the 39 bus. And I'm here because, and I'm here representing Team Nika because I heard about her commitment to affordable housing, transit equity, and accessibility years ago, and I've been a part of the team for a couple of years. She is the state representative for communities here in Mission Hill, in Jamaica Plain, in Roslindale, and in Brookline. And on her behalf, I'd like to thank Councilor Kenzie Bach
State Senator Sonia Diaz, Councilor Matt O'Malley, all of your staff, Michelle Wu, and Ayanna Pressley. Also, thank you to all the community leaders here today. This district has a really rich history of community activism, and it wouldn't be the same if not for that activism. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for defending this. This is really critical. As you may know, Representative Nika is not here because she's in recovery. She sustained multiple injuries, including head trauma after an accident. She's resting. She's trying to do her best to follow doctor's orders, which in this moment is pretty difficult. So she gave me a statement to read on her behalf. First, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day and a thank you to our veterans for their service. As the daughter, the niece, and the granddaughter of veterans, my respect and admiration for the men and women who sacrifice on behalf of our country to protect justice and freedom runs deep. While our sitting federal government may be negligent toward our vets and cavalier at best about their somber responsibility to promote and guard freedom and justice for all, here in the Commonwealth, we reject such casual disregard for our people. Across my district and across the entire city and state, we fight hard to honor and protect not only our vets, but all of our residents. Alongside many local advocates leading the way, my colleagues and I fight hardest for our residents, who, though they are resilient and integral members of our community, are the hardest hit by poverty, by racism, by ageism, and by disability. This commitment has never been more important to uphold than now, when our communities are torn apart by a pandemic. The compounding impacts of structural racism and inequity, and the ravages of a dangerous and incompetent federal administration. My reason for our gathering here today, as you've heard, is the threat of cuts to MBTA service announced in a Boston Globe article earlier this week. We'd like to speak especially to the proposed elimination, either temporary or otherwise, of E-line service between Brigham Circle and Heath Street. As the state rep for Mission Hill and communities in Jamaica Plain, Roslindale, and Brookline, I have fought for an expanded access to public transit. This means more safe, more frequent, more affordable, and more extensive and greener bus and rail service. Our district's goals include improving the safety and maintenance from Brigham Circle through Heath Street, redeveloping this station and intersection, and extending the E-line from Heath Street to Cannery Square. We've been fortunate enough to approve a bond bill funds in the House to begin this work, including safety improvements at key MBTA stations, and launching a feasibility study for Heath Street Station's redevelopment and extension. These bills are currently in conference committee. While I recognize the aim of the MBTA proposal is to make adjustments to the loss in revenue, their approach will not only set these efforts back for decades, it will also disproportionately negatively impact residents hit hardest by COVID-19. This includes our vets, our elders and their families, visitors, and essential workers supporting them in these difficult times. We cannot allow this proposal to go forward. We must find a better way. I recognize that MBTA has grounded their proposal in aggregate usership data that has identified our district's significant drops in ridership during the pandemic. And I want to forcefully assert that the MBTA is looking at the wrong data. Save the trolley! Save the trolley! Save the trolley! We can't make accessibility decisions based on who doesn't need the tea in a pandemic. We must base them on who does. The end of the E line is home to the VA hospital, to half a dozen nursing homes and residences for the elderly and disabled, and to 100 South Huntington, a towering residence full of elder and disabled advocates who helped me lead on transit equity and accessibility issues on display literally just outside their doorstep. Our district is home to countless essential workers in the medical community and beyond. It was already difficult for our elderly and disabled to get access to Heath Street because it is poorly maintained, unsafe for wheelchairs and strollers, and needs to extend further into Jamaica Plain to connect more adequately to our local thoroughfares. COVID has exacerbated this. We cannot make it even more difficult for them and essential workers and families that visit and care for them. We must and will find a way to fund, protect, and improve on services relied upon by our most vulnerable. Yesterday, the House began our budget debates and decided to delay transportation revenue until early 2021. The budget we are debating reduces Mbta funding. I joined a number of legislators in sponsoring amendments to restore funds to the Mbta, but unfortunately, those amendments failed. The reasons included the failure of the Senate to support the House on transportation revenue package we already passed this spring, and the failure of the federal government to provide for COVID relief to states and municipalities, including funds to fill in the transit revenue shortfalls due to the pandemic. With neither state Senate nor federal partnership, it is impossible to fully fund public transit, even with House support. But here's what we can do. The Mbta is taking public comment. Join our offices and letting them know that we have vulnerable riders on these lines who need them even more during COVID. We must not reduce, but enhance services for elderly and disabled riders, and those like our vets using our local hospitals. The same goes for essential workers on these lines. Again, who is not riding cannot be weighed more heavily than he is. The data must focus there and protecting access and safety for current COVID ridership. What else can we do? Call our federal delegations, including Senators Warren and Markey. Make sure they know the next federal package must come before the end of the year and must include funds for transportation and transit infrastructure. Tell them how their work or lack thereof will in part determine what the state is able to do to protect transit riders. Finally, the United States Senate has two outstanding races in Georgia. We must, if both Democrats running there for Senate win, it will tip the balance of power of the Senate Democratic and make it so much easier to get COVID relief funds to states and municipalities like ours. Those elections are on January 5th. If the Democrats win there, the legislature and the Mbta will have even more reason to delay or cancel their March reductions in service. Reach out to your local board committees or state Democratic Party to find out how you can help win races in Georgia. Thank you for gathering here today. We will fight this. We will find resources for the Mbta. We will hold them accountable to the just appropriation of the limited resources they currently steward. We will not accept the casting aside of our transit-using residents because the numbers of riders has decreased during COVID. Together we will find a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Representative Delegado. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple more speakers. I'm now going to turn over the MC duties to my partner on the City Council, my partner representing the back of the hill in Mission Hill. She is a freshman on the body, but she has been a remarkable leader over these last exceptionally difficult 11 months. And she really is the quarterback of convening all of us today. So please join me in welcoming Councilor Kenzie Bach.
Thank you, Matt. Can everybody hear me? Yes. All right. Before I make my own remarks today, I want to read a letter. It's brief, not as long as Mika's excellent remarks. visits per day prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Currently, during the time of COVID-19, we are still seeing more than 700 face-to-face appointments a day for various services, including COVID-19 testing. Many of the veterans who we serve at VA Boston Healthcare System rely on the MBTA for transportation to their appointments in a timely fashion, especially veterans who cannot safely drive themselves. Likewise, our dedicated employees depend on public transportation to get to and from work. We will continue to work with our partners in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the City of Boston to ensure that veterans and our staff have a safe and dependable way to get to all the facilities within VA Boston Healthcare System. Sincerely, Vincent Ziga, Medical Center Director of the VA Boston Healthcare System. I just want to say today, I think that I've been thinking a lot. I used to take this train line out myself to visit my grandfather, who was a veteran who stayed in Sherrill House. Patrick Stapleton's been acknowledged. He's here. Sherrill House is a critical rehab facility and also a facility for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And that was something my grandfather suffered from for several years. And I visited him, and I got to know those essential workers who do that work and who take the tea every day. And I think it is so easy for us to be talking about essential workers these days and thinking that what we need to give is our praise and our lip service, when what we need to give is public transit and hazard pay and paid sick leave and, the real protections that give when you recognize people are essential. And I think, I'm going to take this off, but I was wearing it. I think that we are good in this country sometimes about acknowledging service specifically in regard to our veterans. I think about the fact that we buried my other grandfather this year, and he got a burial space for free down at Bourne because of his service in Korea. Well, that same spirit that gives that free burial place, that acknowledges the fact of that service to our nation, needs to extend to things like public transit for the people who have sacrificed for our nation. And then, again, back to those essential workers, for people who sacrifice every day for all of us. I think that what the T is proposing today is nothing less than a death spiral. It will create a situation in which there isn't service, people can't rely on it, then you're going and taking a car instead. It will lead to higher asthma rates in our communities. It will shut people out of their jobs. It's just a disaster. And for this area that I represent specifically, if we think about the line from Brigham Circle to Heath Street, if you walk that right now, or you hop on one of these trolleys behind us and take it, you are going to pass housing for 1,000 or more seniors at Mission Park. You're going to pass significant low-income housing at Back of the Hill Apartments. You're going to pass 100 Huntington. We've got some folks who have mobility challenges who live there who rely on this line. We've got, as I said, Sherrill House, the VA hospital itself. I mean, this is a line that tells you why you need transit. And one of the things I've heard in the last 48 hours from people is, that last section of the E line, it's not really that good. Like, it sure could use some maintenance. It sure could use some redoing of the tracks beyond what they already did a month ago to actually make it easier to get on and off, make it safer for drivers. I couldn't agree more. But what we're talking about today is disinvestment, not investment. And the reality is that to add the current E-line riders to the users of the most used bus in the system, the 39, the one that again serves a ton of low-income people, people of color, it's a travesty, it's wrong-headed. If anything, the fact that we have a bit of redundant capacity here is critical in the time of COVID. And I just think that we have seen in Boston the story before. We still have neighborhoods, all communities of color, that lost their trains and never got them back. And we're here to say that that's not something we're going to let happen here. This is a city where we need to be investing more in public transit, not less. This is a city where we need to be talking about expanding our lives. And the idea that we would be talking about spending billions of dollars on the Green Line transformation at the other end of this line, and then we would say to people here in our lower income communities, oh, you don't need this trolley, it's redundant, it's not that important. Like, I just think that I think it's just deeply wrong-headed, and I certainly am joining the VA hospital today our disabled American veterans represented by Coleman, the Carmen's Union, the Cheryl House, and some of the groups I'm about to introduce to say that this is unacceptable, and we urge you to roll back these cuts. So with that, I'm going to take over from Matt with a little bit of emceeing, and as the train rolls here, I just want to introduce my council colleague, at-large city councilor Michelle Wu. She's been pushing for freeing the T and for greater investment in the T since before this current crisis, and her work has only become more critical in this crisis. I also think it's really important to note, I think sometimes people, they say, well, is having a free public transportation system reasonable? Is that plausible? Actually, you're seeing the disaster right now. The reason we've got a budget hole is because the state doesn't support this like a public resource, right? It supports it like a user fee-based resource. And it's if we supported it like the public resource that it is, we wouldn't be in the place that we're in right now. And I think we just, and the reason that's important is because it's not actually optional, and that's what we're all here for today. Everybody, our lives in so many ways in our communities depend on this. So I'm grateful to Councilor Wu for her leadership on this, and I want to invite her to the platform.
Hi all. Public transportation is a public good. It should be reliable. It should be accessible. It should be free. And so we are standing here today thanks to our amazing colleagues in government, our essential workers who carry all of our essential workers back and forth, and these amazing residents and activists here to say we have had enough of the Baker administration's treatment of public transit and the Mbta. I want to be clear what is happening here. This is a short-sighted move to do the exact thing that would undercut and undermine and harm our economic recovery, as our small businesses up and down this stretch desperately need people to be able to come in, desperately need their workers to get there. This is a dangerous move that would crowd people together with less service, less options during a pandemic when we most need to space apart. This is a cruel move, immoral, to concentrate the harms and the injustices of this pandemic on the very people who cannot afford to bear that. Communities who live along the stretch that our colleagues here represent. The veterans who are staying at the New England Center and Home for Veterans near Government Center, who are experiencing homelessness, for whom this is the only way to get to health care, this very trolley. It is unacceptable that we are having to rally yet again for a shameless move by the Baker administration to privatize our public resource. We've come together too many times around our janitors that this administration has tried to push out and undermine with their move to privatize cleaning services on the T. We've come together to protest fare hikes again and again and again. Fares have gone up 41% since 2012 on the T. And we have come together to say we need, in this time of crisis, to protect our residents, to promote our economy, to make sure that we are putting public health and safety first. I just want to end with a big, big thank you to everyone here whose service makes our city work. And a final shout out, I see the signs, and I know we're here on this side, but today is the Mission Hill Link. The MBTA is also planning on cutting funding this March to the Mission Hill Link of cleaners in the neighborhood. So lots of advocacy necessary here today. So much for coming out. Thank you, Councilor Wu. Next up, I have the pleasure to introduce Jean-Luc Piret. Sorry, I just said that wrong. He'll correct me. But Jean-Luc is the president of the North American Indian Center of Boston, which, for those who don't know, is a crucial resource
for folks of Native American and Indigenous heritage from not just the city of Boston, but the entire region. It is located right here at this T stop. And these are folks who use this line to get to use those services. There is also, as he'll tell you, a strong overlap between the Native community and the veteran community. And I just think it's really important today, again, for us to make visible who it is who is hit by cuts like this. And I'm so proud of the work that the North American Indian Center of Boston does. And Jean-Luc Pirite is here with some other members of the organization, and I'm pleased to give him the floor.
Before I introduce myself, as is our practice at the North American Indian Center of Boston, I want to recognize the land that we stand on, the land which sustains us as a traditional indigenous territory of the Massachusetts Nation, who continue to this day, in part through their lineal descendants, the Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapog. My name, thank you. My name is Jean-Luc Pirite. I'm originally from New Orleans. I'm a member of the Tunica-Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. I also want to recognize today that along the Gulf of Mexico, people are preparing once again for the landing of a hurricane. We are in multiple crises all the time. Excuse me, my mask is slipping, so I'm gonna do this. We're in multiple crises all the time. And many times when we talk about data equity, data sovereignty. Why is it that the Mass Department of Public Health still does not report American Indian and Alaska Native numbers when it comes to COVID cases? But today, we're not here to talk about statistics. We're here to talk about real people. And I want to just take this time to recognize one of our Native American veterans that is standing with us today, Mr. Joseph Dedham. I want to thank you for your service. And I want you all to understand the geography of where we are, and the metaphor of where we are, because behind us, we have the North American Indian Center of Boston at 105 South Huntington. We have the Cancer Center. And we have the VA. When I say there is a Black, Indigenous, person of color, elder, veteran, cancer patient, it does not take long for any of us to look in our families and our communities to know exactly who is affected by these austerity measures today. And so I just want to take the time to also recognize the space on the calendar. We're here on Veterans Day, in the middle of American Indian Heritage Month. But there's one thing that this country, this United States of America, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts excels at, and it is to tokenize our communities. And I'm talking about American Indian and Alaska Natives. I'm talking about veterans. I'm talking about people who are cancer patients, who are fighting for their lives. We have been at war in each circumstance, and it is not enough to have a day or a week or a month where we thank and say, oh, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being here. That is not enough. It is not in what we say, it is what we do. It is in the budget choices that we make. It is is also in the austerity choices that we make. And so, North American Indian Center of Boston has a question for Secretary Pollack. Secretary Stephanie Pollack, can you hear me? Is this austerity measure, now knowing who it affects, is this austerity measure in line with the federal financial assistance that Mass DOT receives? When we look at broader impacts, further austerity measures, thinking about all those employees at Mass DOT and Mbta, how many of them are Black, Indigenous, person of color, elder, veteran, cancer patients? How many people have to be on the chopping block for this Commonwealth, for this system? It is high time that we move past an age of broken promises and tokenizing and saying thank you so much. And all at the same time on the other side of our mouth, we're going to say cut the budget. And we're going to take those questions to the State House. I want to thank Representative Elagardo. I want to thank Senator Chang for standing with us. We're going to take those questions to the federal government if we have to. I want to thank Representative Ayanna Pressley for being here with us today. And on behalf of myself, my staff, my Executive Director Raquel Halsey, my Vice President Mia Johnson, Gino Kavich, one of our staff members who worked tirelessly to provide services directly to the people that we are talking about today. I want to thank you all for your service. And I want to thank you all for standing with us here in solidarity. Tikach, thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Luc. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce the City of Boston Chief of Streets, Chris Osgood. Before he comes up here, I just want to say I want to thank the mayor, who has already expressed opposition to these cuts. I think the only way we are going to push back on them is if in Boston we are all united on this. And I appreciate the strong stand the mayor's administration has taken against it. I know we've got Shanice Pimentel here from the mayor's office of neighborhood services. And the Office of Neighborhood Services does all kinds of things in our neighborhoods, but being able to count on transit infrastructure, I mean, that's just the base layer of our neighborhoods. That's just, that's something that as a city, we can't do any of our normal operations without it. And I want to say that in my time as a counselor, I've only been here for 11 months, but what I have found again and again is that when I bring my transit-related issues to the Boston Transportation Department, that they are so ready to work with the team around this corridor, around making the experience better for all of our users, for our key riders, for our bus riders, for our bicyclists, for our pedestrians. And I think that, there are times when that partnership is really strong. And then there are times like this where, as partners at a city level, we have to call our regional agency partners to account. And I really appreciate having in that fight for all the work that he does every day. Chris Osgood, Chief of Streets for the City of Boston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see all of our elected officials, our community leaders, our veterans, all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your advocacy. As Councilor Buck said, I'm Chris Osgood. I have the honor of serving as Mayor of Chief of Streets. And on behalf of the mayor and on behalf of the City of Boston, I want you to know that we stand with you. That we stand against the proposed cut of the E-Line service to these streets. High quality, high frequency transit is essential. It is an essential way that we get workers to the VA hospital, patients to the VA hospital during the course of this public health pandemic. It's high quality, high frequency transit service that's going to be essential for all of our residents across our entire region, particularly our lowest income residents, as we transition from a public health crisis into recovery to make sure that we are all accessing the opportunities and contributing to the opportunities of our region. It's high quality and high frequency transit that's at the bedrock of our climate goals, our equity goals, our economic growth goals. And the proposed cut that we are all standing against today is emblematic of this. Now, on no day should we be talking about reducing service to a veterans hospital. That's especially true during a public health crisis on Veterans Day. And think about the year ahead that should be marked by reopening and economic recovery. We cannot take away a one-seat ride from Mission Hill residents to the downtown core or people across our entire region to be able to access the opportunities here. Now, without question, the Mbta faces real and significant challenges, and our first response has to be working together as a community, local, state, and federal. Work together to make sure that we are saving our trolleys, that we are keeping the Mbta, that we're making sure that ELAC keeps running to Keith Street today, that we work on extension plans to Canary Square tomorrow, and that's for the entire region, that the Mbta is working for all of us. So thank you so much for being here today. Look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you, Chief Austin. All right, next up, we've got two more speakers, and the penultimate one is Senator Sonia Chang-Diaz. She needs no introduction. She represents this area. She inspired me to hold stickers in the rain for her in her first race in 2006. And so she's somebody I've been looking up to in public service ever since, and I think that she is, well, you'll all hear from her. She brings a heart to this work that we really value here at Mission Hill. So, Senator Chang-Diaz. You guys hear me? I got it. All right. It's good to have a bullhorn back in my hand. So, I saw two signs as I was walking up to this location. I saw one outside the Sherrill House. It said, "Heroes work here." Heroes work here. Heroes work all up and down this block. Heroes work here. Heroes seek help here. And we know how hard it is for those who have lived a life of service and heroism to seek out that help. And what a moral travesty it is for us to make it harder, to put up more barriers when those heroes are seeking out our help. The second sign that I saw as I was walking here, and this is a little bit more in your face, but I bet it was on a car of somebody who's standing here today. You'll shout out if this is your car. It said, "Tax the rich." And I'm going to tell you guys some truth. There is a narrative that is going on in the building that I proverbially work in, because we're all working remote now, but the state house that I work in, and that Representative Eligardo, who we hope is healing up and following those doctor's orders, works in, as we are undertaking this budget debate right now. And the narrative is this: there's a $3.5 billion hole in the state budget relative to the revenue that we thought was going to be coming in this year because of the downward spike in tax revenues because of the pandemic, right? This is a narrative you guys are all more or less familiar with, even if you don't know the exact numbers. But the next step in that narrative says, we have found a way to fill that hole. So actually, it's all okay. We're going to take some one-time revenue from here, we're going to take some one-time revenue from here, and we're going to plug that hole. And there won't be any major cuts. But we know, as we are standing right here, that we are facing down some major cuts. And I have to tell you that there's a total cognitive dissonance going on at the state level about what the reality is on the ground. Remembering the fact that we are living in a public health crisis, that the needs are not the same needs as last year. They're not the same needs that will necessarily be there after this pandemic is gone. But we have needs unlike we have ever seen before. And the project before us as a responsive government is not simply to preserve the status quo. Even if there weren't customers, which there are. So I need to ask your help. I need to ask you to be loud and clear and be in touch
know, and Nika is here in spirit and she knows, but to be in touch with your other state leaders, with the governor, let him know, first of all, we are not buying that bill of goods, that cuts are not happening. You say that you put forth a budget that avoids severe cuts, come out and see what we see in Mission Hill. Secondly, you need to be loud and clear that yes, we do have heroes that work here. And as the president of the North American Indian Center said, but we can't hear you. As you heard, I don't know what's going on. We might have killed the battery in this thing, guys. That's how much good of a speaking program we have.
Speak right into it. Batteries does it take?
Or I don't know. You need to be loud and clear that we are feeling severe cuts, that the needs are not being met, and that we need to see a pandemic profits tax. Don't you believe it when people tell you that there is not enough money to pay for the services to these heroes to get them to work in a safe manner? Don't you believe it when people tell you implicitly that we have to cut our heroes loose and that they have to fend for themselves to seek out the help that they need? Because the truth is, in the 8 months since the very beginning of this pandemic, not even a year, in the 8 months since the beginning of this pandemic, 20 billionaires in Massachusetts, you guys got to hear this, I'm going to make sure this is working, 20 billionaires who are Massachusetts residents since the beginning of this pandemic, their net worth has increased by $17 billion. That is more than 5 times the whole in the state budget. So don't you believe it when people tell you that we do not have the money in Massachusetts to fix this problem. We do. We need to go get it. We need to follow our values, follow our moral convictions, and we are in this together, and we need to call the out on people when they are honoring our veterans on Veterans Day and pretending that they don't see what's going on here in Mission Hill. Thank you so much for being there. Get on your email, get on your phone, and cure that cognitive dissonance. Thank you so much. Alright, testing. Is it still working?
Yes.
You can hear it? Alright. So, we just have to hold this button down, but I do have backup batteries. But we've come to the final speaker in our program. Talk about someone who needs no introduction. But, you may not know that, you probably do, but you may not know that Congresswoman Pressley founded the Future of Transportation Caucus down in D.C. And I think that's emblematic of how she's bringing the problems we're talking about today all the way to D.C. And there is no question that we are going to need federal funds to support our vital transportation systems in this country, including the Mbta. There is no question, and we hope with our President-elect Biden that we're going to get this. But the thing that's been giving me hope in this crisis, even before that, because it's strange to be a local official in a pandemic like this and find that you don't have a partner in the federal government on so many fronts. It's strange and it's hard. But even all through that, I've always known that we have a champion fighting for us in Washington. And that champion is Ayanna Pressley, the one and only, and we're so glad to have her here with us today.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, ladies and gentlemen.
Save our trolley!
Always resourceful.
I'm worried I might have makeup all over my face. So don't make that camera too tight. Okay. All right. Is that better? All right. So, you know, we have been bearing the gravity and the heart of really 3 pandemics. The coronavirus, the economic hardship that it has wrought, resulting in unprecedented food insecurity, unprecedented unemployment, many families on the precipice of eviction, and then the 3rd pandemic. The only thing that the coronavirus could not kill, racial injustice. And the confluence of these 3 things, and in the midst of this unprecedented hurt, and the failure of this federal administration, this GOP-led Senate carrying the water for that administration, failing to provide comprehensive relief to mitigate your hurt, to meet the scale and scope of this crisis. What you all have done through collective care and mutual aid, you have stood in the gap. These municipal leaders have stood in the gap. These state leaders have stood in the gap. The federal government has failed you, and your state government is failing you right now. Governor Baker, against the backdrop of this national reckoning on racial injustice, I'm going to ask everyone to spare me your allyship in the form of hashtags and tweets. Because the only thing that matters, if you really believe that Black Lives Matter, recognize that even before COVID, the average Black Boston rider was riding an additional 64 hours a year, riding longer, waiting longer, transferring longer. What did that mean? That they were delayed in getting to a healthcare appointment, to getting to their job, to getting to school, to visit a shut-in loved one. This is a racial justice issue. So if you really believe that Black Lives Matter, if you care about those communities that have been all communities, but those disproportionately impacted by this pandemic because of the comorbidities of structural racism. This is one of the most unequal districts in the country, and that is not naturally occurring. That is because of a lack of political will and courage. It is because of legislated hurt and harm. It is because of divestment. It is because of underinvestment. It is because of short-sighted, draconian, discriminatory policies. Transit justice is a racial justice issue. The Massachusetts 7th, in a 3-mile radius from Cambridge to Roxbury, life expectancy drops by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. A lack of access to affordable, rapid, reliable transit has contributed and created that. This is not naturally occurring. So transit justice is a racial justice issue. It is also a workers' rights and economic justice issue. I want to say to our essential workers, we do not only honor and celebrate your labor. Yes, your work is essential, but so the hell are your lives. Your lives are essential. Your families are essential. I am so proud of all of you. It is at times depleting that we have to keep coming together to lift every voice, to say, see our humanity, treat us with dignity. But I am inspired and I am emboldened that you keep coming together to do exactly that. Because you know that our freedoms are tied. That we are one human family. So transit justice is a racial justice issue. It is a workers' rights issue. It is an economic justice issue. It is a healthcare justice issue. It is a climate justice issue. This is a matter of justice that is worth fighting is unprecedented leadership and unprecedented investment, not divestment, not the disenfranchising of your families and your neighbors. This is unconscionable. It is unjust. And we know that when services are cut, they are rarely, if ever, restored. Come on. How long did it take Chinatown to get its library back? Come on. Communities who lost lines never got them back. Including this one. That cannot stand. So I am here in solidarity. Councillor Bach was mentioning that I've created this Future of Transportation Caucus, which centers equity, accessibility, sustainability, and connectivity. Those are the types of federal investments we need to make. Senator Markey and I have introduced the Freedom to Move Act, which will incentivize states and municipalities to close transit gaps. But I'm here in solidarity with all of you, with all of my dedicated and passionate and eloquent colleagues, and just know that we got your back. And this will not stand, because this is a matter of justice, and you are worth fighting for.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
It's pretty amazing to have a congresswoman whose words are literally amplified by justice. Thank you all for being here today. We don't want this event to end without everybody here knowing that there is work to do. We are having this event 48 hours after the announcement of these disastrous cuts. We are now in a public comment period. We need everybody to be entering those public comments. That means you as an individual, you as a worker. It also means, that if you're part of an organization, that's why it's so important. The VA hospital is going to be communicating with the state about this. We've got Cheryl House, like we said, we've got all these institutions, and I'm so grateful today for everybody who came out. We can give one more round of applause for my colleague, Councilor O'Malley, for my colleague, Councilor Wu, for Representative Algordo, who we all wish well, for Senator Chang-Diaz, and of course for Congresswoman Pressley, for the Chief of Streets, Chris Hoskin, on behalf of the Mayor. And, we're here. We're grateful to Pullman for coming and representing the veterans. We're here on veterans land today. We're grateful to Jimmy for coming for the Carmen. We're here on Mbta land today. And really grateful to Jean-Luc for coming and representing the North American Indian community, because we're here on their land today too. So there was a clipboard going around. If you haven't signed up, follow the social media. We need everybody to be involved in this. And you know what? If we have to organize and be in person again and again, we will do it. But this community cannot afford the loss of this line. This whole region cannot afford these cuts. We can't afford the cut to the Mission Link, and we can't afford the cut that's going to send our, commuter rail brethren driving into our city instead of taking the T and making our health worse. So this is a 360-degree problem, and we're going to need everybody together to fight it. So thank you. Thank you for being here today.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. Mbta, they're cutting services, ladies and gentlemen. As you just heard, they're cutting services. They're restricting lines to 9 p.m. at night. No services on the weekends on certain lines. They also cut 25. They will be cutting 25 routes, ladies and gentlemen. 25 routes will be cut. How you doing, ma'am? How you doing? Any words on how this affects you personally?
I wrote my sign how it affects me personally.
My only car is a Green Line car.
Yeah.
Right. So you travel every day, use the Green Line to travel every day?
And not currently every day, actually.
But majority of the time, right?
Because of the pandemic, I'm traveling less, but on a normal time, this is how I get around.
Okay. And are there a lot of people in your community that are complaining about this as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I live just a couple of blocks from the Green Line here.
Okay.
And, I think just it's so important to be able to live without a car and to be able to get around.
Right.
And
How long have you lived in the community?
Actually, just a year and a half. Previously,
Okay.
I lived over
Welcome,
by Mass
welcome.
Ave. A just short distance. I moved. One of my factors in moving was to make sure I was close to rapid transit because I'm self-employed and I need to go to different meetings throughout the week.
Right.
And although most of my meetings are postponed because of the pandemic, as in typical times, I actually chose to move close to the Heath Street station so that I could get around to different meetings every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so very
Well, thank you
important.
for that input.
Yeah.
Hope to get the services
Yeah.
don't stop. They plan to do it by spring, right?
Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I read earlier that they're planning to do all the cuts by next spring.
Yeah.
They also
Yeah.
cut 25 additional bus routes as
That's
well.
terrible, yeah.
The commuter line will be shut down after 9 p.m. during the weeknights, and no service at all on the weekends. They're trying to say,
Right, yeah,
and
no,
that'll affect a lot of people who live
That'll
out of
affect a
town
lot
that
of
come
people.
see their family. You know.
Yeah, no,
So-
I've lived on bus lines too, and that can be so frustrating.
Right.
And of course, I made my sign about my own situation, but like thinking about the needs of the VA hospital, the workers, the cancer center. I made the sign just to speak to my own situation, but really come down thinking about everybody else's situation.
Okay. Well, I thank you for answering
for
those
asking.
questions.
Certainly.
Appreciate you. You have a
Certainly.
nice day.
Thanks, you too. Okay.
Community member, ladies and gentlemen, speaking her words of how she feel against them cutting the green line. First of all, shout out to the natives. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, what do you think is going to turn out by next spring with all this?
What's that?
As far as the cuts, they said by next spring they plan to have all the cuts done by that time.
Yeah.
What do you plan to see at that time?
As I said in my comments, is that we have to keep up the pressure right now. As Representative Delgado said, there's a public comment period, but we're not just going to do that. We're going to rely on Representative Delgado, Senator Chang Diaz, push these questions forward in the State House, lean on Representative Ayanna Pressley to take those questions to the federal government.
Right.
Because Mass DOT, Mbta, they receive federal financial assistance. And so when we are saying that we are in this intersection where we're affecting American Indian, and that is inclusive of black people who are American Indian as well, veterans, cancer patients, people who are fighting for their lives day to day, when we're having those impacted communities, is this cut in line with the federal financial assistance that Mass DOT gets? I don't think so. I think we need to push that issue. I think we need to keep on fighting for our community, because it's not just cutting this line. They're also thinking about employees. at MBTA. Those people are going to lose their jobs. And we're also going to have to stand up for the Black, Indigenous, people of color that are working for the MBTA, who are going to be on the chopping block come spring. So we're going to have to keep up the pressure. We're going to have to keep up fighting on all levels to make sure that our community members are protected.
Hey, I appreciate that. Hey, the beat posted on the meetings, where can I find them at virtually?
Probably you're talking about the MBTA meeting?
Yeah, everything that you guys are talking about and still going to keep leaning on them as far until springtime.
So go to Mass DOT's website because it's Secretary Pollock, who is the CEO, Secretary of Transportation. She's the CEO of MBTA. So you go to Mass DOT's website and look up the public information there. I'm pretty sure there could be some redirect to another MBTA website. But all of that is publicly available. And of course, I'm pretty sure that we're going to put a call out again, to actually have people be directed to submit their public testimony.
Okay, so are you guys actually appearing at the State House at this time to voice your concerns as well?
This is, we have just learned about these cuts in the last 48 hours.
Right.
However, North American Indian Center of Boston, we're involved with the Massachusetts Indigenous Legislative Agenda. That is an agenda of about 5 bills. Right now we have 3 that are up in the legislature. Most specifically the one to change the seal and motto of the state because we have a racist flag. We're behind Mississippi right now in terms of addressing that issue. But now that we are aware of these cuts and we are aware of what we need to do, we're going to take this conversation. We actually had a conversation with Beacon Block last night. Okay. So we are talking with the State House right now.
Okay, and for a regular citizen like me and this brother right here, if we wanted to get involved, what would you say the best way to get involved as far as voicing our concerns with what's going on? What would be the best way? Like for a regular,
it's getting in touch with the public comment, where they're actually collecting the public comments from Mass DOT. I'm not too sure. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I would go to the Mass DOT's website. I would call up Mass DOT and say, where the hell do I need to send my testimony because I need my voice to be heard.
Right.
Call the MBTA offices, call Mass DOT, send the emails, send the letters. Make sure that all channels are flooded, regardless of any specific website or whatever. Their offices are publicly available, their address is publicly available,
right.
Their email address is publicly available, their phone numbers are publicly available. We just got to keep up the pressure. Right.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. I'm the Resistance.
Yes.
You can check me out on YouTube. This is live right now. For the record, what's your name again?
My name is Jean-Luc Pirit.
Jean-Luc Pirit,
I am I'm originally from New Orleans, member of the Tunica Biloxi Tribe of Louisiana. I'm a resident here in Jamaica Plain. I'm president at the North American Indian Center of Boston.
Okay, appreciate you.
All right.
Have a good day.
NACOB91 on social media. Tag us.
All right.
Alexis Harewood said say you hi.
What's that?
The Ellie Mae Foundation.
Oh, Nellie Mae. Yeah. Well, I just got
Nazar Raw, ladies and gentlemen. Nazar Raw.
Advisory group. So, really good working with Alexis and Nellie Mae.
You got a good family.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right.
This is the house.
What's up, y'all?
If you guys watch YouTube, I'm pretty sure if you've seen this channel, you watch YouTube. This is the Resistance right here.
What's going on?
All around.
That's Raw. What's up, bro? How you been? I ain't seen you in a while,
I've been around, man. I've been busy.
I hear you. But you out here for the important things, though.
They often like to characterize themselves as patriots. Peaceful transition of power is one of the pillars of our democracy, pillars of our institution. And so it is predictable, it is not surprising, but there are 3 things that will never change. the voters, and he failed the American people. And all those failures were on the ballot, and that is exactly why he was evicted. No, I will. So what I've been advocating for is that in the same way that we recognize that our nursing homes and our veterans homes, we're going to be predisposed to the coronavirus thriving because they are congregate living. The same is true for our correctional facilities, for our county jails, and for our prisons. They are overcrowded because of mass incarceration. And so we predicted in March, that's when I started my cries with impacted families who were worried for their loved ones, with advocates, and some of my colleagues in the State House, to make sure that we were investing in testing behind the walls, access to PPE. But again, because of overcrowding, we now see surges happening in our county jails and in our prison system. And I don't think incarceration should be a death sentence. These prisons are petri dishes for the virus to thrive. They're not hospitals. And so we should be decarcerating, following the example of New Jersey. Those that are elderly, which is 10% of the population incarcerated, those with underlying conditions, most of whom are incarcerated at MCI Norfolk, those that are pregnant, and pre-trial detainees who have been convicted of no crime, but are incarcerated simply because they couldn't afford bail. So they should be released to home confinement or other alternatives, following the lead of states like New Jersey and I believe California, who have safely done this. Again, these are incarcerated men and women who pose no risk to society, whose families and children I represent. 1 in 4 children in the Massachusetts Southern has an incarcerated parent. So these are not nameless, faceless individuals. These are people that are members of families and members of communities. And it is a human rights issue, it is a public health issue, and it is also a racial justice issue. I don't know what last. I mean, I think we talked to you since you were. That's going to be a big deal, not just for the nation, but you know, a little bit, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, what a day, right? What a time. Against the backdrop of a national reckoning on racial injustice, the centennial of the 19th Amendment, where black women were allies in that fight, but were not extended the same grace and access to the ballot until 55 years ago. To have the first child of immigrants, the first black, the first AAPI, the first historically black college universities, vice president for our country is powerful, in many ways surreal, but I think it honors the labor of the black women who came before her and the role that black women have played on the ballot, but at the ballot box as the most reliably voting constituency for the Democratic Party. So I feel proud, I feel hopeful, and I believe that her lived experiences will directly shape and inform the policies that come out of this administration. And that's what I'm most excited and looking forward to. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Came back from the World War were the backbone for that movement that culminated in the 50s and getting our civil rights legislation to actually get traction.
Historical concepts. Thank you for providing that. And thank you for being here. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hey, Congresswoman. How you doing? How you doing?
There should be a link for every neighborhood.
I thought you were giving it to me. I said, I can't take these. Good to see you all right.
She ain't speaking to me. I'm going to a slice. She ain't saying nothing to me. What the hell are you?
She did acknowledge it. She did hide.
She gave us a nod.
Yeah, she did acknowledge it.
I'm gonna have to rewind the tape. I ain't seen nothing. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We just had Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna Pressley speaking her words on service cuts of the Mbta. Speaking her words on President-elect Biden and you know how treasonous Trump is. We're out here for a rally protest of the Mbta service cuts that supposed to happen in spring of next year, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate y'all riding with me, sliding with me. It's the resistance. I'm everywhere in public. What's going on over here?
Want me to get her to get a picture with us? Talk to us.
I got her a couple times. I got her a couple times previously. We spoke. Ayanna Pressley's bodyguard, ladies and gentlemen. Ayanna Pressley's bodyguard. Shout outs to Robert Brown. What's up?
I might as well get a picture with her.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the resistance. I'm everywhere in public. Till next time, it's such a good feeling be with family and friends. Such a happy feeling when you live in the hand. You wake up ready to say, hey, I think I make a snappy new day. It's just a good feeling, a very good feeling. A feeling to know that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. I'm out of here, yo. It's the resistance.